We just woke up in Pacifica.
Good morning.
Good morning. Second time car camping here, I think. We've car camped in other places, but it's always fun waking up to the beach. So we've got ocean waves and camp mode on, but now it's time to check out the Aptera event.
I'm excited.
We'll see what they got for us there. So when we went to sleep, it was 51%, and now, overnight, running camp mode, it's 43%. Not too bad.
Me and my wife Louise had an absolute blast meeting so many viewers. It felt like half my channel showed up at this event. It was awesome to put so many different faces to names and catch so many people's first impressions ever with the Gamma prototype. A lot of what my job at the Aptera event was showing people around the vehicle, trying to make sure people wouldn't vandalize it or anything like that, and I appreciate all of the investors and viewers and reservation holders for being so patient with this vehicle, and for so many of you coming out to say hi, and I'm doing my best to follow up with everybody's contact info that I got. But even the people who weren't viewers of the channel actually thought I worked there. I mean, not surprisingly, I had all of my Aptera merch on, and I was helping out with the event, so it really appeared like I worked there, especially because I could answer almost any question people were asking about. But just to be clear, no, Aptera did not pay me at all to be at this event. In case you weren't aware, they decided on Saturday to have a free event in San Francisco because they knew they had a lot of fans up there, and they expected maybe a couple hundred people to show up, and then once they sent out the online invitation, over 1,300 people RSVP'd, and that does not even count foot traffic. And let me tell you from first-hand experience, there was so many people that found out about Aptera for the first time at this event, just from walking by and going, what is this thing? What am I looking at? And it was an absolute blast to see so many people's first impressions and then try to answer all of their questions about it, because it's such a unique and radically different looking vehicle. So many people had questions, and by far the most fun one, in my opinion, was when they said, how much does this thing cost? So I know Aptera was not cherry picking questions from the last video they posted, because anytime someone would ask me, how much is the Aptera launch edition going to cost, I would ask them, how much do you think it costs? Without failure, I kid you not, every single time, I must have asked this question dozens of times, they always said north of 60 grand. A lot of people were saying probably like $70,000. Some people said $80,000 to $100,000, simply because it's so exotic looking, with the doors going upwards, the fact that we have this big carbon fiber bink on the inside. We're talking about how low weight it is and how high the range is, and all of the solar charging and software tech integrated and everything. So many people were convinced that this was a premium, luxury vehicle because of how radical it looked. And once I told them that no, they're actually targeting under $40,000, seriously, so many people just immediately went, oh, really? Oh, that's actually not bad at all. And that's usually when they would go inside and look at the bink, and there was new stuff for me even as well. At this event was the first debut Aptera, I believe, has ever done of the production seats, at least at a in-person event. And I did get to pull a little bit of strings because I showed up at the event before it officially begun. And Chris McCammon, being the absolute mad lad that he was, actually let me take it for a first test sit. I'm not sure if I'm the first official person to sit in the production seats, but obviously it's not like bolted down into the bink, so the leg room and the sitting position and the H-point and stuff is not exactly finalized yet. But my first impressions were, wow, this seat is super lightweight, and it's definitely a bit more firm than the seats I'm used to in the Model 3, but I'm impressed how similar they were able to make it feel and look to the Gamma prototype, which I watched literally hundreds of people a few days ago sit in and talk about how comfortable they were, and usually when they got out they said, yep, okay, I want one, I'm ready to go. So it's possible that the production seats need to break in a little bit, considering they weren't bolted to the bink. Unfortunately, that was one of the few production parts that wasn't ready yet for this event. The brackets that actually physically attach the seats to the body and carbon in the first place, so that's why they weren't able to let everybody sit in the production seats. But it's cool to actually feel them, look at them, and realize that no, this is not a prototype seat, this is not a one-off, this is from their official seat supplier, and they're gearing up for production next year. I think some people are definitely going to prefer to have a little bit more bolstering, like I've sat in lots of different EVs. Teslas tend to have a little bit more of a cradle to them, and I would say the Aptera seat felt a bit more in line with what you'd find in a Rivian. You know, Rivians have a bit more of a stiff seat feel, a lot less bolstering, they're a bit flatter, but I think personally it might be because it helps a wider demographic of people. There were lots of tall people, short people, you know, and everything in between, checking out the Aptera prototype and the Bink and the new production seats and everything, and sometimes having less bolstering can be better for the seat longevity, particularly when it's a different kind of entering process. Because the Aptera is so slim, it's not that it's really short, it's just that the entry point is a bit higher off the ground than most other vehicles. That was another thing I was advising people who were sitting in the Gamma prototype to do, is go in butt first and then pivot your legs inward, because most people kind of want to sidestep into the car. That's what we're used to doing in a lot of SUVs and trucks, so it definitely takes some getting used to because it's such a radically different vehicle. And because a lot of people are probably going to be sitting into it butt first, I'm not sure that having more of a cradle design or more bolstering on the sides of the seats is that great of an idea. It could wear them out faster. But needless to say, I was comfortable, although I wasn't in the seat too long. There was plenty of leg room, and I can't wait to do a more long-term range test to feel how these things are going to perform after sitting in them for hours and hours at a time. But the good news is Aptera's seats, because they're so lightweight, and because Aptera is looking at how to make manufacturing simple and efficient, I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not speaking for Aptera on this point, but I wouldn't be shocked if you could do aftermarket seats down the road, because these are mesh fabric seats meant to be affordable and lightweight and simplify the manufacturing as much as possible, because they are not heated, they are not ventilated, which may be a bummer for a lot of people out there that are expecting those kinds of features with this price point. But I was kind of surprised when I saw that Tesla was switching to a mesh fabric on their interiors for the Model 3 in Mexico, and so many positive comments came in on that video saying, hey, I would rather have the mesh fabric design anyway, because that vegan leather stuff doesn't age all that great, and it gets really hot and it gets really cold in the differing temperatures. So if you're going for a more passively heated and cooled seat instead of an active one, having that mesh textile fabric design actually can breathe a bit better in the heat, and the HVAC in the car can change the temperature of the seats before you get in it, you know, when you're pre-cooling or preheating, a lot better with that type of material. That, you know, the Aptera seats are all physical, manual, you know, you just pull a lever to adjust the backrest, and then there's a lever in the front middle to slide it up and down on these rails. They might be the easiest seats in the EV industry to service and replace if you want to swap them out with something aftermarket, which Aptera is a right to repair company, so I wouldn't be shocked if third parties come up with their own seat designs that have maybe more bolstering if you prefer. But not having motors and actuators like we do in most EVs and complicating the design with more heated and ventilated options simplifies the manufacturing, keeps it lighter weight, and also I think fairly easy to service. You'll just be able to unscrew a couple of bolts and take the whole seat out. If you want to turn it into a service vehicle and just have more storage capacity on the passenger side, or if you want to swap it out for a different design that cradles you more, I don't think that's going to be too difficult for them to do down the road. But personally, I prefer the headrest a lot to my Model 3, which is very rounded and makes my head kind of roll off the headrest very easily, whereas Aptera's is a lot more flat and plush, so that made it feel a bit more like a pillow when I put my head against it. But I'm personally grateful that Aptera is the kind of company to try to figure out how can we make our seats practical and serviceable and easy to replace and have as little wiring and as little sensors in them as possible, because that all creates more failure points and it makes servicing the vehicle much, much harder. In fact, in my first year of ownership, I had to replace the passenger seat in my Model 3 because one of those actuators or, you know, seat sensors on the inside went bad. So I had this annoying pop-up everywhere I went, and they tried to fix just the sensor themselves with mobile service, and that didn't work. So then I had to bring it into the service center and they had to swap out the entire seat, and didn't even let me keep the old seat, which I wish I could have turned into an office chair or something. But no, they took that back and they said it would have to be destroyed, which I don't think really goes with the whole sustainability mission that I think Tesla wants to go for. So maybe making a more lightweight, serviceable seat that doesn't have as much complexity. Let's just go old school with some physical controls and make it really easy to work on yourself is the right way forward. And I can't wait for these PI builds to be done in the next few months, because they've taken into consideration so many of the complaints that people have with the original Gamma prototype, which is still very eye-catching, still very cool to drive around. They drove it incredibly fast after leaving the event, of course under the speed limit though. But anywho, I appreciate everybody for coming out. There's more Aptera content to come, so stay tuned for that. Also, huge shout out to Gene for hooking us up with these incredible fan-made body in chocolate Aptera
Apteras, which look delicious and are really cool that he was able to make because it's so intricate. Like you can see the individual solar cells and all the door seams and everything. I haven't had the heart to eat it yet, but it looks fantastic. And he gave this to some of the ambassadors. Definitely use his referral link if you haven't ordered an Aptera already. But yeah, amazing website. If you haven't seen it yet, Experience Aptera lets you put it wherever you want in the world with augmented reality. Awesome guy. Really great hanging out with him. And thanks again for the chocolate. This thing is awesome.
And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.